So hello and welcome to today's Info2Go webinar. My name is Annie Gaines and I'm the Continuing Education Consultant here at the Idaho Commission for Libraries, located in sunny Boise, Idaho. Our webinars and other continuing education opportunities are funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Everyone is muted, and we encourage you to use the chat feature to ask questions and discuss with other attendees. As you exit the webinar, you'll be prompted to complete an evaluation. And as always, we appreciate your honest feedback. Today's topic is about stress management, and our presenter today is Leslie Blanche from University of Idaho Bonneville County Extension. Please take it away, Leslie.
Okay, thank you. Do I need to share my screen again? Okay,
Yes, if you don't mind.
I would love to. Here we go. All right, can you see that screen okay?
Yep, looks great.
Wonderful. All right, well, as Annie said, I'm Leslie Blanche, working in southeastern Idaho for University of Idaho. Our university is up in our little panhandle, but through extension, we bring research-based classes and other programs to our communities where we live. So I'm not too far from the Tetons, not too far from West Yellowstone, really a beautiful place to live. And today we actually have sun and it's supposed to be in the 80s, so that is good for us. Thank you, first of all, for your time today and your interest in stress management, living life essentially. And Annie and I were talking before, and this can be a hot topic for a lot of people. It is always a hot topic for me. So I will be brief in my personal examples, but I will be giving a few personal examples throughout. And I would really love to invite you, if possible, to unmute yourself. And Annie, maybe that is not possible in this format. When I ask questions and want some interaction, if you are not able to unmute, go ahead and enter them into chat. And Annie, if you could help me monitor chat during those times, I'd appreciate it. So, stress management. So I want to kind of focus on the word management. That doesn't necessarily mean stress avoidance or a stress-free life, but managing the stresses in our life. How can we manage ourselves, really, as we'll see, so that we can respond to those life stressors in a more productive way and hopefully minimize the negative impact of life stress. We'll be kind of talking about some types of stress that we do have some control over. How can we have some control so that we can manage the stress? But then there are those stresses that just come upon us and we really have to bolster ourselves internally to manage our response. Okay, let me make sure. Well, here we go. So chronic stress, I'm not going to spend too much time on the negative, but I do want to review, and some of you may already be aware, that chronic stress does impact our immune system in a negative way. It can either suppress it, so that we get every cold and flu and other kind of virus that goes around, or maybe a chronic hyperactivation, thus some autoimmune conditions can be impacted by stress. So some physical, negative physiological responses to an emotional or mental stress. Speaking of that, stress can increase that chronic inflammation response, which again, we value our acute inflammation. We get a cut, the blood and white blood cells rush to that area to heal. There's some warmth, there's some swelling, there's some redness. That's temporary. That's actually a good thing for healing. But when it's that chronic low-grade stress, and we're talking mostly mental emotional here in this class today, it can manifest itself physically in various diseases. Mental and emotional stress also accelerates our aging, actually at the cellular level. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to accelerate that anymore. I'd rather put that brakes on that aging process. This one probably seems pretty reasonable, that chronic stress will increase depression or can increase depression, anxiety, and other emotions that we might not want to have, like anger, tension, impatience, etc. Stress can impair our sleep. Lack of sleep can also contribute to more stress. We'll see how that works both ways. Stress can affect our eating habits. A lot of us are emotional eaters, and we want to have that food to kind of suppress some of those stressful emotions. Others, when they get stressed, they don't eat. So again, it could be either extreme on that pendulum. And then another very understandable one is that chronic stress can harm relationships. If we are irritable, if we're impatient, if we're angry, if we're depressed, that's going to bleed out into our relationships, whether those are personal or professional. So some negative things about chronic stress. We want to help ourselves take a break from stress. How can we take a break from stress? Here are a few things, and then we'll open it up to chat after we've discussed these for a moment. Asking for help. I think of how many times I have caused myself unnecessary stress or increased a stressful situation by not asking for help. Either my pride gets in the way, that self-sufficiency, that type A personality, I can do it, when really I might need to just swallow my pride and ask for help. Think about how you can apply that in your professional life. Are there some job assignments that are stressful, or interactions with clients that are stressful, that perhaps you can ask help from a coworker or from your supervisor to try to help mitigate and find a good balance where you can still take on that assignment, but with some help? Or maybe you can delegate as well. Personally, how can we ask for help? Whether it's chores around the house, responsibility with children, or aging parents. How can we ask for help to mitigate that pressure on ourselves? And then accepting that help. Asking for help is not a weakness, it's actually a strength. And I have to keep reminding myself, I'm trying to reverse my thinking on that. Asking for help is not a weakness, it's actually a strength. Talking about your feelings. Talking about your feelings, about the situations, how it makes you feel physically, emotionally, etc. Again, is not a sign of weakness. It is actually a strength. And talking about your feelings could be on a casual level, when appropriate, with a coworker or supervisor, or maybe someone in your personal sphere, whether that's family or friends. Or it may take on a more professional look, seeing therapists, counselors, things like that. But talking about your feelings, there's something about getting things out that is so therapeutic. Doesn't always change the situation. And maybe we're not even asking the person who's listening for advice. We are just releasing. And that is very therapeutic and can equip us to then handle the situation at hand. So don't be ashamed to talk about your feelings. Get moving, physical activity. We are created to move, and we are also created with some feel-good hormones, endorphins, our happy chemicals, and those are released when we are moving physically. I'm sure many of you have experienced just taking even a brief walk outside, and oh, your mind is clear, your emotions are more calm. You're now awake, or maybe physically energized, and just feel more prepared, again, to handle what is at hand. Doing something enjoyable, that might be a form of physical exercise, but it may be something else. And here's where I would love for you to enter into chat, or again, if you're able to unmute your microphone, what you either do or maybe would like to do that is enjoyable to help mitigate stress. So go ahead and enter in, and I've got the chat open. And Annie says, if you didn't already see in chat, if you want to be unmuted to share, just put the raise hand icon and she will unmute you. So I see two people saying reading. Yes, go for a walk. Music, pray, listen to inspirational music. Crafting, another music. Drawing, taking a walk, doing a jigsaw puzzle. Great ideas. Some are physically active outdoors, some are more of mental activity indoors, like maybe the jigsaw puzzling. Some are just relaxing, letting that sound through music come in, working with your hands in crafting, prayer, traveling, nice, and outdoor activities. Beautiful. So as we go through today, you might want to jot down just for yourself some enjoyable activities you want to resolve that you will incorporate into whether it's your daily life, once a week, etc. Maybe set some small goals to incorporate enjoyable activities, and you'll see some lowering of that stress. Alicia says taking a break for a few minutes just to relax. Yes, looking away from the computer so we can have stress from our eyes or from the information that's coming in from the computer. I don't know if any of you have heard of the 20-20-20 rule, but every 20 minutes, take just 20 seconds to look about 20 feet away from you. Now, in your space, you may not be able to look 20 feet away, but a greater distance than your computer screen. And just observe what you see, the colors. Maybe you can even open a window and listen to some sounds. Annie had some beautiful nature music on for us before the webinar began. But that gives your eyes a break. Physically, it gives your brain a little reset and can refresh you to continue on with your tasks. So doing something enjoyable. Thank you for your comments in chat. Taking a break from stress might be taking a breather. So Alicia mentioned that, taking a break, relaxing. It might be literally taking a breather, doing some deep breathing. Many of you may already be familiar with various deep breathing techniques. We're going to do just a basic breathing in to a count of 4 slowly through the nose, and then breathing out through a count of 4 very slowly, very controlled through pursed lips. I always say to people, pretend you're blowing bubbles, but you don't want to burst those soap bubbles. You want to let those bubbles grow, so it's a slow release. So go ahead and just get comfortable where you're at. You can have your eyes opened or closed. We'll roll those shoulders back and down, and then just slowly breathe in through your nose. And I'll just count in my head to about 4. Through pursed lips, slowly exhale through the mouth. And again, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. We're going to add a variation. We're going to pause after we inhale. So square breathing. Let's inhale. Now pause. Hold your breath. Let that oxygen really oxygenate your blood. Slow exhale through pursed lips. And pause. One more time. Breathing in. Holding that breath. Slowly breathing out. And pausing. This square breathing is also known as combat breathing. They use it in the military. They use it in law enforcement. It's used with mental health situations to just bring a calmness. So you may have felt your body, your muscles relaxing. You may have felt that tension releasing, or even rapid breathing obviously was slowing down. So we brought some control there. You can kind of feel that blood pressure coming down. So deep breathing can be practiced anywhere at any time. You could be driving, deep breathing. You could be standing in a long line at the store, dealing with a difficult situation, perhaps with a client or a friend or family member. And you can have your eyes open and just be doing your deep breathing very subtly. No one needs to know, but it equips you to deal with that stress. Distraction. Some of the enjoyable things we said could also be distraction. The crafts, the walks, traveling, the new experiences, having new input, reading. That's using, to me, reading is guided imagery, right? Because that we're imagining things. Or there are things such as apps that are guided imagery. Imagine you're walking in a garden and you're opening that creaky gate. You go into the garden. What do you smell? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Those kinds of things. Guided imagery can just kind of take you away to a peaceful place for a moment so that you can have that reset. Same with meditation and other mindfulness practices. Deep breathing, distraction guided imageries, those are examples of mindfulness practices. And then, on a real practical note, taking a break from electronics. And the person who said relaxing, taking a break, perhaps you had in mind taking a break from electronics as well. So obviously, our electronic age is wonderful. Here we are connecting all over the United States, sharing this moment and information and time of personal growth. But there's a time to take a break from electronics, whether it's the computer, the tablet, the phone. So for the first time, probably since I've really been using technology, I took a weekend vacation from email, and that was over Memorial Day email or Memorial Day weekend. I was feeling pretty stressed on both a personal and professional level, and my husband said, "Why don't you just not check emails this weekend?" And I thought, I don't know if I can do that. What if there's something I need to respond to? Um, and especially a friend of mine had been going through some hard things, and we had been communicating by email back and forth. So I thought, okay, I can do this. I'm just not going to check my work email till after that holiday weekend. And I did email that friend and just said, I'm taking a break from electronics for this weekend. I'll check my emails again Tuesday morning. But if you really need to talk, give me a call. Because I felt like, gosh, if I don't check the emails and she has something somewhat urgent, because that's her preferred way to communicate, I thought I'm really leaving her out on a limb. I didn't feel good about that. So it was kind of a nice, happy medium. I was able to give myself a break from the emails, but still be open to that friend in a different way. Everything was fine. She didn't need to call. And I found myself, because I checked my emails on my phone, reaching for my phone and then just saying no. I don't know how many times I did that, but I felt really victorious at the end of the weekend. So maybe you want to have a an electronic vacation, whether it's an evening or turning things off at a certain time every evening. Think about that. How would that decrease your stress? Managing energy and living life essentially, and those two areas are the bulk of the rest of the presentation. So first I want to give you an opportunity, any other ideas you folks have, how we can take a break from stress. Again, either raise your hand, your little electronic hand, and Annie can unmute you, or you can enter into chat. Yoga, thank you. Yes, yoga, other types of stretching, Tai Chi, kind of that slower, rhythmic, controlled movement. Okay, if there are other ideas, go ahead and enter them and we will be checking chat. Managing energy. And this is not in my references at the end, but I put the reference on this slide. This is something I just recently added to this presentation, and this was from Harvard Business School Publishing, and it is a book called, in fact, I have it right here, On Managing Yourself. Oops, sorry, that's blurred. Anyway, the reference is there, but my supervisor loaned that to me, and she said, Leslie, you might be interested in this, because I was saying that by the time I get to Friday, I have no mental or emotional energy left to give to people. I just want to be by myself. And that's how I recharge, is being by myself. And again, that's not a weakness. That can be a strength. I've always looked at that as kind of a weakness, but it's not. So this article in the Harvard Business School publication talked about 4 different types of energy, and the chapter title was Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time. And I thought, I've been focusing on time management to try to relieve some of my stress because I tend to overcommit. But I thought, I need to also manage my energy. So here we go. Here are some main points that they shared that I thought were just excellent. So managing our physical energy, enhancing sleep. Well, that could be a whole hour plus webinar in itself. But just think, is there a way you can enhance sleep? Research article after research article, the number one thing they tend to mention is set a routine, a bedtime routine. Kind of think about children, and babies especially, we like to get them in a routine. We also like to get them in, hopefully, a sleep schedule, to bed about the same time, naps about the same time, getting up about the same time. Well, we are like overgrown babies or toddlers. Our bodies actually respond very well to a sleep schedule. So try that. Maybe give yourself a window, say between 10 and 11, I'll be in bed every night, and between 6 and 7, I'll be up. And the recommendations from the professionals are to make that 7 days a week, not to have a work day sleep schedule and a weekend sleep schedule, because then our body gets confused. We want to get those circadian rhythms set. For some of us, it might be bedtime between 8 and 9 and up between 5 and 6, etc. Find kind of your sweet window for getting to bed and getting up, and then really work toward making that consistent. Your body will thank you, but it will also bring refreshment to your mind and emotions with that enhanced sleep. Cardiovascular exercise. We mentioned endorphins. People talked about walking being a great break from stress. Those feel good chemicals get going with exercise, particularly when our heart is pumping. And it almost is like we're literally breathing out and maybe even perspiring out the emotional stress. So cardiovascular exercise, so important. Maybe that's a focal point for you, trying to get more of that in. And it doesn't have to be all in one big time frame. It doesn't have to be at 30 or 60 minutes at a time. It could be 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Small, light meals every 3 hours. Now, I know that some of you might be thinking, wait a minute, I thought intermittent fasting was really healthy. And that, again, is a whole nother nutritional topic in itself. And every body is different. However, where these authors were coming from, and it does make sense to me as a dietitian, if your physical energy is waxing and waning with your blood sugar going up and down, then for those individuals, having smaller meals, not requiring such a big insulin response, but more often so that we don't get the drop in the blood sugar, might help sustain or even out our physical energy during the day. I find that my mental and emotional energy also goes up and down with blood sugar fluctuations. So this is just to try to keep the blood sugars a little more even. So again, might be a consideration for you. And then taking brief regular breaks every 90 to 20 minutes. Again, Alicia mentioned taking breaks, relax. And again, this kind of goes along with body rhythms. So our attention and mental acuity tends to start to decline after about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's good to just get up, even if it's just standing up, walking around your chair, maybe looking out the window, take that 20 seconds to look out, go visit with a colleague for a minute or two, get up, go to the copy machine. Sometimes I purposely schedule myself to do different photocopying or printing projects scattered throughout the day, because that gets me up. Again, gives my eyes a break from the computer, my mind a reset, and it really does reset our energy. So important taking those breaks. Could be 1 minute, could be 10 minutes, every 90 to 120 minutes. And studies show that corporations that encourage that, they actually have higher productivity rates from their employees, because the employees are more refreshed. They're able to work more accurately, more efficiently, smoothly, etc., than pushing themselves and dragging on. Think of yourself working on a mental project. Maybe you're writing a report, entering data. Oh boy, after that hour and a half, your brain is getting fuzzy. But if you're like me, sometimes you think, nope, I'm on a roll. I don't want to interrupt. I'm going to keep going, but I'm really slowing down. Whereas if I would get up for that 1 or 2 minutes, I can come back. And again, studies show that really work even faster. So food for thought. And I'm just going to pop in and check chat. Okay, a couple comments. I do not have social media, and that is a major help. Social media can be fun, can be enjoyable, a way to connect to people, but it can also be stressful. It can also kind of suck us in and utilize more time than maybe we wanted to allot to that. Another person says that singing is a way that they minimize stress or take a break from stress. Okay, so physical energy. How can we manage our physical energy through sleep, activity, our eating patterns, and taking those regular breaks? What about emotional energy? A lot of us don't think in terms of emotional energy. Here are some principles. Diffuse negative emotions through that deep abdominal breathing. We're going to revisit that breathing one more time, and I'm going to just back up a little bit. I might just adjust my camera, because what we're going to do this time is place one hand just under our diaphragm, so kind of between the rib cage and the belly button. This time, as we inhale through our nose, go ahead and let that abdominal expand. I call it filling the belly balloon, and it's sometimes called belly breathing, such as in yoga. So let's inhale, let the air fill that belly right under our diaphragm. And then as we exhale, we're going to empty that belly balloon or bring the navel toward the spine and pushing that air up through the lungs. Let's do that again. Inhale, let that belly balloon expand. Slow exhale through pursed lips. Contract those abdominal muscles, bring them in and letting that air out. So again, benefits of deep breathing, diffusing that negative emotional energy. Feel free to keep breathing if you want. Just promise you won't fall asleep. It is great for inducing sleep, by the way. So we want to diffuse the negative emotions and fuel the positive emotions. And one way to do that is through gratitude. Many of you have probably heard of gratitude journaling. So impactful. A couple years ago, probably 3 years ago now, my New Year's resolution was to every morning and every evening write down at least one thing I was grateful for. Well, I was doing well writing down in the morning, but evening I wasn't real consistent, so I felt like I was failing. So I was having negative emotion there. I felt like this wasn't going well. I wasn't meeting my goal, so I changed my goal. I changed my goal to make it more achievable. So we know about SMART goals. They want that A, achievable. I decided my goal is going to be to write down one thing every morning. If I happen to write down at night, great, that's bonus. And that was achievable for me. But I find that as I write one thing, I'll come up with a list of 5, 10 things. Once you really start thinking, we do have a lot to be grateful for. So fueling positive emotions through gratitude. A couple of examples might be, perhaps you feel very overworked right now in your profession, but can you be grateful that you have a job, that you have employment? That doesn't mean not working on the things that are stressing you out, but still maintaining that underlying attitude of gratitude. Perhaps you have lost someone, they've passed, that you were close to, and we need to work through all those stages of grief. But gratitude helps working through that grief, focusing on what they meant to you, the positive parts of them that influenced your life in a good way. So think about, how can you express gratitude, whether it's in journaling, through prayer, through telling another person what you appreciate about them. Double blessing. You are uplifted, your positive emotions are reinforced, diffusing stressful emotions, while you uplift them, hopefully decreasing some of their stressful emotions. And then this was really revolutionary for me, looking at it in this material that I mentioned from the Harvard Business School. Look at upsetting situation through new lenses. The reverse lens. What is the other side of the story? I might be frustrated with my spouse for doing ABC, but what was his side of the story? What was his perspective? And maybe I need to ask to gain some understanding, and that can diffuse my anger. A long lens. Okay, in 6 months from now, how important is this going to be? That kind of helps us pull things back into perspective. So I do have challenges with punctuality, and I have for decades, but it's something I'm really trying to hone in on, especially when I'm teaching the class. I really should be there early, right? Not just scooting in under the wire. So I'm really trying to focus on that. However, in doing that, sometimes I put myself under so much pressure. I'm hitting every red light. There was a phone call I had to take at the office before I left to get to that class location, whatever the situation. And I find myself tensing up and I'm breathing fast, all those stress responses. And then I have to just take a deep breath and say, Leslie, is anybody going to die if you're not there on time to start a class on stress management or on whatever topic? And it kind of brings it back into perspective. It's like, well, no. Is anybody going to be physically harmed? No. Okay, I'm going to continue to work on being punctual, but let me keep it in perspective so that my stress response doesn't get out of hand. That's just a little example that applies to me. So think of that long lens. Whatever you're grappling with right now, how important or what impact will that have 6 months from now? And it might be impactful. And then you get out your other tools to deal with that. And then a wide lens is more, how does this situation work with my core values? What is the impact on others? What is the long-term impact? Similar to the long lens, a wide lens, just trying to rein in some perspective. Any comments, questions, or suggestions on managing either physical or emotional energy? And again, you can enter into chat or be unmuted. Okay, we'll move on. Managing other energy, if I can get this slide, here we go. Mental energy, reducing interruptions. I find that when I get to the office, my mind is like a ping pong ball. I'm not sure if I should start on this email or that project or looking at my calendar for next week, or it's just going. And then I get ding, ding, ding notifications on my computer. So this morning when I came in, I was like that. I thought, Leslie, your mind is like a ping pong ball. You're jumping from one thing to another. First thing I did was turn off my notifications. In reading through some of these principles, I realized I really do need to reduce interruptions. And it's usually myself. I'm interrupting myself because I hear a ding. So, I better check that email, instead of kind of setting boundaries with myself. And that's something, to set boundaries with yourself. I'm going to check emails between these times. I am going to check texts or respond to phone calls between these times. Kind of managing ourselves by reducing interruptions. Can you put a note on your office door? Can you put a note on your bedroom door, or let your family know, I'm going to go have some downtime for the next hour. I'll be available again at thus and such time, or I'm focusing on a project right now. Please send my calls to voicemail. So how can you reduce interruptions in your life? And that goes to the next, responding to messages at designated times. That's something I'm going to start to do. These are small things, but a lot of times I find that it's the small stresses that pile up that break me down. The crises that come, I tend to handle those better than the small daily stresses. And you may be the same or maybe different. Another mental energy management tool is each night identify what's going to be the most challenging, what you think is the most challenging or most important the next day, and then tackle that first. Get that out of the way so it's not weighing on you, not in the back of your mind while you're doing maybe other simpler, less challenging tasks. And if you're like most of us, our energy, both physical, mental, emotional, is better in the morning and tends to decrease during the day. So maybe utilizing the morning hours or whatever first of your day is for those more challenging situations. And then spiritual energy, and spiritual can be defined in many ways. I think this is referring mostly to just your inner self, identifying rejuvenating activities. We've kind of talked about that. Things you enjoy and putting them on your calendar, actually making an appointment with yourself to do something you enjoy. Rejuvenation. Identify the activities that are draining And here we go again. Ask for help or delegate, or we might find that eliminating some of those draining activities can be done and relieve ourselves of some pressure. Allocate time and energy to what you find is essential for you. And we're going to move into essentialism and living your core values. That again can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but think about that. What is most important to you? What is regenerating? Try to maximize those. What is draining? Try to minimize those. So we will move on. Living Life Essentially is from a book, these principles, called Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and that will be in my reference slides. Such a good book. I've read through it 3 or 4 times. So this is just kind of his general principles. Living life essentially is not about getting more done. Boom, I got 20 things on my checklist done. I'm worthwhile. I had a good day, but about getting the right things done. Right things, pursuing less, but better. So again, a shift from quantity, maybe more to quality. Still being disciplined and not haphazard, but moving kind of from that chaos to a more productive, happier, disciplined way of living. Now, if you're like I am, you have been on this red side, or I have been anyway, for most of my life, the non-essentialist. Here's things the way I've lived my life. And that's why this book really resonated with me. I thought I need to be all things to all people. If there's a need, I need to fill it. I have to. I'm expected to. And not being able to differentiate between the most important and the unimportant. It was all kind of jumbled. It was all important. As opposed to I choose to rather than I have to. And whittling down my priorities to what really, really matters. Again, getting out that long lens. In 6 months, will this matter? At the end of my life, what do I want people to remember me for? That I had a super clean house, or that I was kind and compassionate and had time to listen? So getting out that wide lens, that long lens. Pursuing more and more and more, reacting to the most pressing, saying yes without thinking. I've been a yes person, kind of a people pleaser. And a lot of my self-identity was in that, but it kind of was destroying me. So a disciplined pursuit of less, pausing instead of that knee-jerk, yes, I can do that, pause. Maybe even saying, let me get back to you tomorrow on that. Let me get back to you next week. And saying no to all but the essential. And we will spend a little time on how to kindly and tactfully say no. So that non-essentialist lifestyle can be very stressful, very chaotic, because we tend to pile more things on our plate. Taking on too much, feeling out of control, overwhelmed and exhausted. Anybody relate to that? Me. Which is a life that isn't very satisfactory, really. But living a life that matters, choosing carefully, pausing before we say yes. Is it in line with our core values and our priorities? Do we feel out of control, or can we feel in control by some of our choices and actually having joy in the journey? So let's pursue some of the principles. Exploring our options, eliminating what is not essential, and then executing what is essential, putting action to those goals. So evaluating before committing. We can save ourselves a lot of stress if we take that moment to pause and actually evaluate. So here's me, or I want to say the old me. Oh, sure, I have time between 1 and 2. I have a class from 11:30 to 12:30, but I could do that from 1 to 2, eat lunch in the car on the way, and then jet back, or maybe join by phone Zoom meeting from 2 to 3. So that's my old way of scheduling. I'm trying to move out of that. I'm trying to evaluate before committing. Evaluating not just my time, but my energy. Will I have the physical capability to get here, there, and eat lunch, or not eat lunch, and is that good for me? What about my mental and emotional energy? If I've just been teaching a class, should I teach another one back to back? Will I not be as on? Will I not have the best capacity to give to those participants. So evaluating physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual energy before committing. And then this was a very repeated phrase in this book, Essentialism: discern the trivial many from the vital few. The trivial many from the vital few. So again, I won't belabor this too much, but rather than the I have to mentality, let's try to adopt the I choose to, because then we are more empowered over our choices and more likely we'll be doing those tasks with joy. Whereas I've experienced when I say yes with the more of I have to, I'm doing those tasks with resentment and maybe even bitterness. So another beautiful book, Sacred Rest, which will be in my references, she talks about the gift of choice. With every choice, we pick up something and we release something. Now, those of us who have lived non-essentially, that just keep picking things up, and then we're so overwhelmed and exhausted, we really need to learn to release something. When we pick something up, release something. How are we going to balance that plate? Less but better. Saying yes to one opportunity might mean saying no to another instead of yes to everything. So balancing out that teeter-totter. We don't want the yeses way up here and the nos here. We need to discern what is most essential for us, or maybe for the people we're serving, whatever that capacity looks like. What can I say yes to and be effective? And what should I say no to so I can be more effective over here? So considering those trade-offs, what can I be the most effective? What can I go big on? And that doesn't mean taking on a big project. I should replace that. What can I go wholeheartedly on? What can I do thoroughly? So ideas, comments. I'm opening up chat for questions, comments. We have another comment from Alicia. Pace yourself. Don't try to do it everything at once, and prioritize. And Annie says, I like less but better. Yes, and being a type A person that I am, I always think more and more and more. The more I can check off my list, the more worthwhile I am, I guess, or just the better I feel about myself, and look at all I've done. But maybe I didn't do all those things so well. Maybe if I'd just done 2 or 3 things, but really did them well. Annie adds, it's a great contrast to doing more with less. Yes, less but better. Okay, we'll come back to chat. Feel free to enter at any time. But think of some things that you might need to eliminate so that you can really add quality to what you do. And again, minimize the stress on your time, the stress on your various energies. So we may need to, okay, we explored our choices. You might think, but I don't have a choice in my job. Ask for help. Your supervisor, director is human too. Quite often we're pleasantly surprised when we maybe make ourselves a little bit vulnerable to let them know we are overwhelmed with that assignment. Is there any way that can be modified, shared, taken off your plate, etc.? Just having that conversation. Again, whether that's personally or professionally, exploring your choices. And then eliminating, cutting out the trivial. Focus on your core values, the big picture. And then executing that new you, that new essentialist you, removing obstacles. So I'll go back to my punctuality challenges. I tend to assume the best case scenario. I assume that I can get to the office, I can get this, and this done. It takes me exactly 15 minutes to get there. I might allow 18 minutes, but then I hit every red light. Or again, I get a phone call that I really need to take before I leave the office. I need to stop assuming best case scenario, build in a buffer, 10 extra minutes for those red lights, whatever, 15 extra minutes. Rather than piling on the quick fixes, removing obstacles. And again, I just keep coming back to asking for help. Can you delegate? There's a committee I'm on that I love the committee. I love what we're doing in the community, but I'm not real technical, so entering the typing up all the meeting minutes, that was just like a big time suck for me that I felt I didn't have. Entering the things on SharePoint, the little bit of technology that for me, I'm like technophobic. I get a stress response from that. And so I asked a gal who on the committee, I said, would you mind being the co-lead on this committee? She loves doing she loves typing up the minutes. She loves entering all the things on the spreadsheet. She just doesn't like facilitating the meetings. I don't mind facilitating meetings, and she does all the data entry, and we make a great team. So for months, I kept it on myself until I finally asked for help. And that's, again, a small thing, and yet sometimes it's the small things that build up. So I have found that a big stress relief, and therefore I've been able to continue on the committee and do something that does align with my core values. So we want to stop focusing on more, and bringing forth what is essential, that good fruit. So aspirations, what are essential for you to focus on right now? Is there a certain category of your life? And this is a great time to enter into chat or unmute, ask to be unmute. Is there an area of your life, in your professional life, that is really essential right now that you want to focus in on? Is it something with finances, economic, social? Do you perhaps need to draw back a little bit socially? If you're like I am and need that alone time to recharge, that's not a negative thing. That's just a difference between, for instance, my brother, who the more people time, the better. For me, I love people, but at some point it gets draining and I need alone time to be better. So finding your balance socially, that goes in relationally too. Is there a relationship, whether that's professional or personal, that is essential for you to focus in on right now, or other personal, health, etc.? So if anyone would like to share an area of their life that they might want to focus in on, oh, it's the professional stress I want to work on, or social, relational stress, go ahead and enter into chat. And you might be thinking, all of them. Well, pick one small area in all of them, or two or three. So we have personal, making more time for creative projects. Great. That may not change that person's work stress. It may not change their financial stress, but it is strengthening them inside to be more resilient and handle those maybe unchangeable stresses. Quite often, overscheduling is a stress that we do have some control, some choice over. So as you think about your stresses today and these different categories, think, do I have control? Do I not have control? Oh, I don't have control. What can I do to strengthen my inner person, such as slowing down? We've got here getting more rest, crafting, creative projects. Or yes, it is something I have control. How can I say no to some of those requests? All right, so slowing down, getting more rest. Thank you for sharing. Pressing on, we're going to look just briefly at some ways to say no. So remember that non-essentialist says yes to almost everything, kind of yes before thinking. And I used to be of this mindset. If someone else is doing it, I should too. Part of that is the perfectionist in me, wanting to be as good as everybody else in everything, which is not realistic. But kind of realizing, okay, it's all right for me to have my strengths and my not strengths. And it's okay for me to rejoice that they have a strength that I don't have. That's okay. Takes pressure off of ourselves. Sometimes we avoid no because it is just awkward to say no, or we have that expectation. Maybe you've got a 2-day weekend and you've got 5 different social opportunities and you feel obligated to all 5. Where's your rest time going to be? Where's your time for creativeness or just that me time? Again, if you're like I am and you need that social rest, sometimes pick the top 2, decide how many, or maybe you're going to go to each one and only stay for a half an hour. Just make an appearance. How can you make it work for you Yes, still considering others and their feelings, certainly, but still making it work for you. I had a friend who had a Memorial Day barbecue and it was from noon to 9. And she did say it was a drop in, but I kind of felt some expectation to be there for hours. And so I let her know that I could be there from about 12:30 to 2. So I just let her know that up front. And it was so freeing. So not something I'm learning myself is to not live by what I think other people's expectations are. Whew, that takes a lot of stress off my plate right there. Can we say no firmly, gracefully, resolutely? Ask ourselves, is this something I'm really looking for? The author Greg McEwen says, say yes to the top 10 of our opportunities. Wow, that means 90% of the time I'm saying no. That would be really different. Now that's his recommendation, but just take a look at that for yourself. Are there areas you need to start saying no in? How can we gracefully say no? And I thought this was a really good quote from this book. A clear no can actually be more graceful than a vague or non-committal yes. So if you ask me if I can come and help you decorate for a party, 4 hours, decorate for this party. Yes, I guess I can do that. What am I really saying in my voice, in my body language? Or if I say, I'm so sorry, I'm not able to do that. I could come an hour before. Or I wish I could help. I'm barely going to get there in time for the party. Perhaps check with so and so. I know they really love decorating. They might appreciate that. So sometimes my saying no to something is giving an NO, a new opportunity, to someone else. It's opening the door for someone else to fill that role. And something we need to really get in mind if we are putting ourselves under pressure by saying yes too much, separating the decision, no, from the relationship. I'm not rejecting the person just because I'm saying no to the request. So, how can we say no? What are some phrases or other words without actually saying the word no? Kayla, I appreciate your input back on the area you want to focus on personal, focusing more on your health, and professional. So, two areas, personal and professional, asking for help. Good for you. So, enter into chat any terms that you have used or you can think of on the spot that maybe could communicate gracefully. The answer is no without even saying the word no. That's not something I can do today. Nice. Natalie mentions I have a hard time saying no. As a people pleaser, it's hard. I'm totally with you, Natalie. It is hard. It is challenging. Annie suggests I'd love to, but. And Heather, I like that's not something I can do today. Period. You don't have to give all the explanation of because I've got this and this and this going on. Just Jennifer says, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Carrie, I'm flattered. Oh, I like this. I'm flattered you thought of me, but I can't take that on right now. I need to write that down. Thank you, Carrie. I'm flattered you thought of me, but I can't take that on right now. What a beautiful, graceful way to say no. She didn't say, none of you said the word no. A phrase that my sister encourages me to use, and it has been very helpful, is I'm sorry, but I have another commitment at that time, even if that commitment is to myself, even if that commitment is to take a nap or have some do nothing time. Write your personal time in on your calendar and then look at that as a commitment. And again, we don't have to explain ourselves. Elizabeth, not at this time. Yes. And maybe you want to leave it open for the future. Maybe you really would like to do it another time, but just not at this time. Great, great, great. Thank you so much. Keep brainstorming on that. With yourself, jotting down phrases that you can use. So, final thoughts. An essentialist, if we're living life essentially, focusing more on what's really important to us, alignment with our core values. How can we balance out those different areas of our life? An essentialist learns to say no gracefully, moves from stress and chaos to more impact and more fulfillment. Remember, less but better. Changing our focus from quantity to quality. And those choices, really asking ourselves, is this essential? Is this essential? Celebrate small acts of progress. Maybe tomorrow you'll end up saying no to something in a graceful way, and you previously would have said yes without thinking. Celebrate that act of progress. So, living life essentially, taking some deep breaths now and then, taking the breaks, finding things you enjoy, scheduling them in on your calendar, saying no gracefully but resolutely, and managing your energy. So here are some references. Feel free to do a screenshot. Again, the books I cited, uh, right in the middle, Dalton Smith, Sandra, Sacred Rest. That's a beautiful book to read. And then McEwen, Greg, This Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less is wonderful as well. And then there's some other references. And I know that Annie will be making this recording available. So let's take a moment for final Q&A or input from you folks, because we learned from each other. Thank you so much. And then we'll wrap things up. So opening up the mic or the chat, I'll open up my chat again. Oh, I like this term. Alicia, I would love to, but this is my free weekend, taking a me day. Just saying it right out there and not being embarrassed or feeling that you have to explain, but that, yeah, this is a me day. I love that too. That takes a little courage to say that. I love these phrases. So thank you for teaching me and sharing with me some of these great, gracious ways to say no. Any final questions or comments? Okay, Annie, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, these are such great tips. Especially I'm also a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah.
I feel like that's quite common in libraries because we just want to serve, we just
Oh,
want to help,
sure.
we just want to be, helpful people in the community.
Right.
And it's hard to say no, especially with
Mm-hmm.
limited budgets. And
Mm-hmm.
so these were excellent, excellent tips. I really appreciate you bringing them to
Oh,
us
thank
and
you.
sharing your perspective and helping us brainstorm gracious ways to say no to things because I think that's something we could all work a little bit on. So
Yes, well, thank you. And thank you to everyone for your time and attention. And, if there's just one application you can draw from this that hopefully will impact your life in a positive way, then that's wonderful.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording
Okay.
now.
All righty. Thanks.